Are we broadcasting? Are we live? Hope so. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. If you're watching this on a Saturday, then chances are your Saturday did not go quite as well as you had hoped. Talking throttle body test and also talking no, I did not die. No, I am not laid up. No, I did not have the Rona. At least that's what the test said. Test said I did not have it. Let me tell you something. If it waddles and quacks, what do you call it, right? So I was pretty much still have a little bit of a cough thing, but pretty much not under the weather. Felt fine. Just didn't have a voice for a week and then kind of jacked up. Couldn't sleep for another week. So anyway, getting to it. Dad's Garage saying, welcome back. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hopefully my voice is back. If I do one of those every once in a while, and we're on the road to recovery. So, you know, just me being a human being. Mark saying, yes, sir. Been waiting to see my favorite Mopar technician, Mason. What's up, man? Yeah, you're always learning something new. One of the guys, Brennan, had reached out to me on Instagram and was asking me why his car was leaking after an oil change. Never even noticed this one apparent little seal at the adapter, the oil filter adapter. Learn something new every day. One of those things where you just never see it, never pay attention to it. Anyway, getting back to it. Yes, we are back on schedule. So wanted to bring to you some testing that I've been doing with the Fastman Throttlebody. Now, this is going to be kind of a prelude to a video that I'll do, which is going to get a little bit more techie, a little bit more in depth. And why is my air conditioner not freaking working? Hang on just a second. God dang. I'm about to die up in this thing, sweating like a damn whore on Christmas. Okay, so anyway, getting back to it. Hey, thank you very much. Dad's Garage, man, I appreciate it, saying for the meds. Well, thank you very much. We've got some Walgreens sinus pressure and pain over here. We got some Ricola cough drops. Hold up, these are actually really good. Sugar-free. These, if you end up catching something that gets underneath your skin, this actually ain't too bad. But thank you very much. I appreciate that, man. There's definitely something going around, so that's lovely. So let's talk about throttle body testing. Now, keep in mind, this is for a Hellcat, forced induction, but positive displacement. And you would be forgiven if you thought that any kind of update, upgrade, or whatever, down with your pocketbook, any type of upgrade would help. Oddly enough, yes and no. So let's kind of go through that. So let me tell you what the product is. Fastman is a manufacturer, makes throttle bodies, or I should say modifies stock throttle bodies and does a through port job. Basically makes the whole thing bigger on the inside. Presumably, bigger hole, more flow, more fuel added, makes more power. That is accurate if the engine needs more air. And what I did was I was pretty specific about the timing of the testing and the type of testing that I was going to do. First of all, the timing of the test. Down here in Southeast Texas, your average DA right now is around 2,500 feet. Why is that relevant? Well, down here, 2,500 feet is a swamp, and I'm over here sweating, even though the AC is working. 2,500 feet is a swamp. Zero altitude, basically at sea level, would be ideal. So a zero DA obviously would be fantastic, but folks like in the high desert, brothers and sisters out in Arizona, out in Colorado, they start out life at like 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet. So I wanted to have a density altitude somewhere right in the middle. Also, density altitude like that on these cars on a cascading timing table will throw a ton of timing at the car. At least it'll try to, provided that the air mass is low enough. The lower the air mass up to a certain point, the more timing you get. That's why it's kind of hard to DA correct these cars, because in these conditions, I'm running, let's say, 18 degrees of timing, whereas in very low density altitude conditions, I may only be running 15. pretty big difference in spread, but also a huge difference in actual air charge, available air. So all of that out of the way, basically what I'm telling you is that I picked a footage, an altitude that would be right square in the middle between sea level and the highest altitude you would presumably get, and an altitude in a time of the year where the timing would be high. So there you have it. Car ran good. Car ran basically was just flat out running 1050 something every hit down the drag strip. By the way, if you want to take a look at those time slips, go to HRP Slips. It's an app on your phone. Look up car number 1122, and you'll see all of the runs that I had made. So, did the throttle body work on my car? Well, no, it didn't. As a matter of fact, the car was quicker with the stock throttle body in every test that I did. And now I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to do a little bit of a sidebar. All right, let me kind of break the fourth wall here. I'm not saying the throttle body's bad. I'm not saying the throttle body doesn't work. I did work with a buddy of mine, Nathan, with his pulleyed red eye, and he did get different results than I did with this throttle body. So I'm going to talk about that afterwards, but we're going to talk about my car first. I'm going to go through the data first, but just know that I gave this throttle body literally every opportunity I could to succeed. As a matter of fact, I took the car to the drag strip not once but twice on normal Friday nights and Tuesday nights, because we're running Tuesdays as well. Was rained out of both of those nights, so I had $60 in track rental fees, plus I took the extra step to go to an actual track rental, which ended up costing another $250 just to try to get enough data on this thing and to give it enough passes and enough A to B passes down that track with the data logger. What the hell is in my face? With the data logger running, so that I could try to pick up on any potential anomaly. And I got lucky. The last night, the last track day that I went to, I was able to get a stock throttle body pass, swap out the throttle body to the Fastman throttle body within 30 minutes, and I had the cool down feature pumping on that thing. And within 30 minutes, had the car back in the staging lanes, back in the burnout box actually, ready to run at the exact same temperature. Water temperature the same, trans temperature the same, everything was the same, and the DA was basically the same. We're talking 30 minutes here, guys. I ran the car. Now, when I first ran the Fastman throttle body, I was seeing data that was suggesting that it was adding a significant, or the car was drawing, I should say, a significant amount of air. And that was interesting. In fact, it was interesting enough to where it was putting the car in, because you have to remember, like I said earlier, a cascading timing table. It was putting the car now into an air charge table that was removing about 2 degrees of timing, either 1.5 or 2 degrees of timing. You go, damn, that's crazy. And the car was still running more or less the same number, but it was slower on the 60 foot. So to validate the data, which is something you have to do, I repeated the same procedure. Took the Fastman throttle body off and put the stock throttle body back on and made another hit. Again, temperatures I made sure were identical. 165 degrees in the burnout box. So can't get any better than that for all 3 passes. And lo and behold, when I swapped back over to the stock throttle body, not only did the car go quicker in a condition with higher humidity, higher grains, but it 60 footed better. In fact, it picked up the 60 foot that it lost. So what does that tell us? Well, I don't know, but it tells me the stock throttle body's staying on the car because my car has stock boost. But a couple of things, just, observations with this throttle body. Number one, when I put the throttle body on the car, it was a lot more fiddly to get right. One of the things you guys have to remember, and this is one of the finer details, so all 15 of y'all watching right now are going to get a bit of a top tip here that has been the reason why I've been able to set numbers with NA cars and my car, stock car. One of the problems with throttle bodies is guys will get the throttle body, throw it on the car, cinch it down, fire it up, and take it for a scoot. There is about 1/8 of an inch, which when you're dealing with a machine part is like a ton of real estate, that thing will move around. In fact, let me show you what I'm talking about with one of with Dr. Differential's throttle bodies here. This is the one. This is my blank that I use for porting his intakes. The bolt is not identical to the size of this hole. Okay, so you get some movement like that when you go to put the thing on the car, on your manifold, or in this case, on your supercharger, on your snout. The issue here is you could end up in a situation where you've got part of that manifold encroaching into the throttle body if you don't center it right. I'm using this just because it's an easy thing to show, and it kind of over dramatizes the thing. You get what I'm talking about. The stock throttle body is actually fairly easy to center up, but you still have to make sure that it's centered on that manifold or on that snout, or else you're going to get just kind of a jacked up airflow going through there. The Fastman, because it's through ported, is real fiddly to get lined up just right. And I mean, it is spot on in terms of being the right size to go on that snout. But the big deal here is that you've got to take your time when you're installing this thing. And the trick is when you're tightening the throttle body onto the manifold or onto the snout, is to get it just barely snug, just to where it's holding it, but not to where you can't move it. You want it just enough to where you can scoot it around just a little bit, get your fingers in here and feel and make sure that there's not that lip that we were just talking about where the manifold could encroach anywhere around that thing. And you'll feel that lip as you put your fingers in there and feel it. Slowly cinch everything down, have the throttle blade open, and you can just go around with your fingers. Make sure you don't have that lip there. The Fastman was, because it's almost exactly the same size, any slight movement of that throttle body would create that lip. So it was a little bit fiddly to get installed. This is why you might think about going with a 105 or something like that, where you've got an adapter, like the bell opening adapter. It's a lot easier to install than the throttle body in that respect. But that didn't matter. Got it installed, and was extreme. The whole point of that is talk about going around your ass to get your elbow. The whole point of that is to say that I really did give the thing every opportunity to succeed. And where it lacked compared to the stock throttle body, oh, by the way, yes, I did do a throttle relearn on my car. My car, being a 2015, you can do a throttle relearn. The later cars I learned, which I never even bothered to look into, so why would I know? But you don't have to do a throttle relearn. It automatically goes through its own syncing. So pretty cool. Learned that on the Red Eye. So after installing the throttle body, did the throttle relearn, I gave it a couple of shots to try to get, you know, that same 60 foot that I was getting with the stock throttle body, and I couldn't. And again, I ran it on cool down passes, hot lapped it, did everything I could to try to mimic what the stock throttle body performance was, and I just couldn't get it to do it. So would I recommend one? No, because not for a stock car. The reason why I say that is my car felt a little bit sluggish after I put the throttle body on it. I had the throttle body on it for quite a while, was driving the car around with the throttle body on it for quite a while, and it just didn't have that initial hit that the stock throttle body had. This is not unexpected though. This is the exact same thing that you would see with Lightnings back in the day. So take that for what it's worth. But What about in other applications? Oh, sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. So when I had run the data back, when I did the A-B-A comparison, the very last time that throttle body was on the car, I was looking at the data, and the data was suggesting, oh yeah, it's bringing in a lot more air. It was even had a higher injector duty cycle. Put the stock throttle body back on the car, again, same amount of wait time, same amount of temperature, the whole bit. Made the hit with that car, and I had identical data with the stock throttle body that I had with the Fastman throttle body. Same timing value, same air charge, same KPA. Actually, KPA was up slightly, which is to say boost, but we're talking fractions here. Air mass was up just a fraction, but anyway, that's when I just basically washed my hands of it and said, look, done with this thing at this point. So for my car, for a stock boost car, I don't care what a dyno says. The only dyno that I'm honestly interested in is the drag strip. And what can I say? But again, to see the time slips, go back to the HRP Slips app, and you'll see a ton of time slips. In fact, last night's time slips with the car were kind of funny because the grains last night, I think, were like 132, 134. I mean, it was just ridiculous for the round of testing that we did with the red eye. So the red eye, on the other hand, is a pulleyed red eye using the leg maker cold air intake. Now, my car was that throttle body using the stock air box. And you might say, well, you didn't give it a chance. Well, hold your horses, Chief, because we put it on a car that has a supercharger that is 10% larger with a pulley that's turning the supercharger, I don't know, 8 to 10% faster, whatever the number is. Long story short, it's making a considerable amount more power than my car. In fact, that car, if it were the same weight as my car, would probably be close to a full second faster than my car. And when we put the Fastman on that car, it actually did see some positive results. Whereas it kind of went a little bit backwards with my car when the vehicle that we installed it on actually could utilize more flow because it was simply drawing significantly much more air. That's when that throttle body actually did have a positive result. So if you have a pulleyed Hellcat or a pulleyed red eye, I would say yes, the Fastman throttle body would be the way to go. So what were the results of that test? Well, basically on a car that was running high nines, the car stayed running high nines, but in the event if the car did have a little bit of wheel slip, the car would still run a high 9 as opposed to a 10.0, and the mile per hour was up by roughly 1 mile an hour on the big end of the track. That is significant because picking up 1 mile an hour at the back half of the track, keeping in mind this car is at full weight. We're really not trying to get a number out of it. We're just trying to see what the delta is between two passes. The car did well, and the car was a little bit peppier, I guess you could say, out of the hole. At least that's what Nate was telling me, and that's what he noticed about that throttle body was that, yeah, it felt like it was doing something, and the car, even when the humidity started creeping up, that's when these cars start to kind of give up a little bit. You give too much of an air mass, you got too much water in the air, and it just kind of slows the cars down at the end of the night. His car actually ran its fastest mile per hour, indicated 142 in that left lane. That's actually an exit speed. So that exit speed is really more, probably more like a 138, but it doesn't really matter because we're all just going off of, it doesn't matter what the number is, just is it higher or lower. and it went up by a full mile per hour, and it was up in mile per hour as long as that throttle body was on the car. As a matter of fact, it still is. Rick was asking if that red eye is on pump gas. Negative. That red eye is on the kern. One interesting thing about that red eye, the snap on that red eye seemed like, because I did the install, obviously I do all the work on these. When I'm doing the R&D, I want to make sure that it's me doing the work, because I don't trust anybody else to center it up the way that I would center it. I'm over here doing it like I'm actually, working on something. Anyway, I'm real finicky about that. I want to make sure that these things are just so. And what I noticed is that snout on the red eye, and this was interesting, the snout on the red eye seemed to be about 1/3 or 1/4 of a millimeter smaller than my snout. It could have been, the angle of the dangle or whatever, but I just noticed that it took me a lot longer. It was a lot more difficult to get it to line up, just so. And I'm don't necessarily rely on my point of view on this, because I am OCD, obsessive compulsive, about how I line up stuff. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, did see a result with the pulleyed red eye. Now, would it have made a difference on a normal red eye? I tried to find the car that I knew had the highest airflow demand out of anything in the fleet, and Nathan volunteered his car for testing. Super cool. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Saw that it did pick up with that throttle body, and throttle body's his now. So sweet. So let me get with you guys. Enough of my blabbering on over here. Riff saying, glad to see you're starting to feel a little bit better. Yeah, I feel great. I don't feel bad at all. In fact, I haven't had really any lingering cough all day. It's just obviously tonight. I don't know what the deal is here, so I don't know. But Mike's in saying, hey, I'm early. Cool, man. Let's see. Riff saying, I feel like the throttle body would work better if you had a ported snout. Don't get ahead of yourself on that. The reason why I say that is because the only area that you can really port on that snout, if you look at it, is really just the opening. You can go in there and start to maybe smooth out things, but I can tell you this, I've seen what passes for a ported snout, and it ain't a ported snout. You would have to get in there with a burr and actually reshape. There's a lot of reshaping you would have to do for it to really even matter. To be honest with you, all you would have to do if you wanted to kind of force the issue, if you will, is it would take some time. You could actually do this though on the car. You just have to be real careful with how you did it. Is just to come in about, I don't know, an inch-ish, like a knuckle. Come in about the length of your knuckle right here. And just blend that out to where it's the same size, just mic it, or, spec it out, just die chem it, and open it up to maybe 95.5 millimeters, just so that you would ensure that you've got a smooth-ish transition. The backside doesn't matter as long as the hole isn't smaller than the airflow coming this way doesn't hit a ridge. People think of it as sucking air through, but you have to remember that there's going to be a tube on the other side of this. For you guys that are new to the channel, the shop is close to Velocito. It's been real nice out, and you may hear some heavy artillery running around out there. So somebody just drove by and whapped the throttle. So what's up? Anyway, you would rather have the backside be larger than smaller, in the direction of airflow, like this way. So anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, you would want to maybe open that up. I don't even know that would help you too much though, because if you actually go in and look at that snout, it opens up real quick into an area that's about that big. It's like a cavern in there, and then you've got the two rotors in the back just sitting there. I don't honestly see how it would help too much unless you are turning the absolute hell out of that blower. And in that case, it might help, but I just think that you would just want to port match the snout to whatever size throttle body that you're working with. In this case, like 105 millimeters might work, but here's the twist, okay? So we're talking about a pulleyed 2.7 liter supercharger. If it were starting for air, you would have seen a significant increase. And in the data, we saw about, if memory serves me correctly, we saw about a 2% increase in airflow. So if it were really and this is on a hole that would basically flow roughly 6 to 7% more than the stock throttle body, give or take. You know, just we're talking hole for hole, not butterflies and bolts and humps and nothing that. Just hole for hole, it's 6-ish%, 6 to 7%. We saw a 2% airflow gain. It's not like we saw a 6% airflow gain and the car started picking up power everywhere. Just didn't see that. So again, you would have to have significant airflow demand for that larger hole to be able to actually afford you a benefit. Here's another twist. And again, we're talking about a car with a 10% larger supercharger than mine, spinning, I don't know, 8 to 10% faster than mine. That's how much that car picked up. You would have to have that pulley combination as well as a 10% lower to really take advantage of an airflow demand, and even then it may be dealing with a discharge temperature that's just way too hot. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to a part that only has like one moving part if you don't count this stuff in the motor here. So you know, obviously I would definitely recommend that throttle body for more than modified cars. But what I was going with this is, so you open up that throttle body, what you may notice is that now the car may feel a little bit soft. What I mean by that is at the same power level, or the same power level from the point of view of your foot, you're giving it, I don't know, half an inch of throttle, you're going to accelerate more than what you would have normally accelerated to with the smaller throttle body. In this case, if you did open that thing up to 105. So you would have less throttle input to accelerate at the same rate. That means that your trans tune, this is where I have a ton of expertise in this coming from the Ford side with the Lightnings and throttle bodies and things like that. Your trans tune is going to have to really start getting played with at this point, because that lower percentage of throttle input would make the car want to shift earlier. So it's kind of a weird thing where you've got this bigger throttle body that you think is going to give you better throttle response, but it feels numb when you're driving it because the transmission is just going through the gears, shift, 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 because your throttle input isn't as high as it was before to achieve the same power level, which is to say the same acceleration rate. So what would happen if you did open up that the throttle body, or rather open up the snout in this case, now you've got a situation where you would absolutely have to change shift points, downshift points, upshift points in particular, to accommodate, and you would want to extend those, by the way, to accommodate that larger throttle body. And that is a pain in the ass, because you're going to probably go in and extend those shift points by, I would start out at 5% and just go from there. So, because without it, the car is going to be kind of numb going through the gears. Well, that don't feel good when you just got through spending a lot of money to get quote unquote more power. So, let's see. Oh, Rick is saying he's noticed running on corn, it helps a lot when it comes to timing. So, yeah, the thing with corn, yeah, you absolutely can run more timing. That's the whole idea with ethanol-based fuels. The downside, I'll give you a perfect example of this, just happened today. running ethanol-based fuels can be a bit of a problem, especially if the car sits for any real length of time. The ethanol will absolutely come out of suspension, and it'll also start to collect water, or can, in some cases, absorb water. My four-wheeler went to fired up great. The fuel in the bowl was fine. The fuel in the tank was garbage because the fuel in the tank had absorbed all this humid ass air that we've got. You know, the vent was left open because I'm a genius. Anyway, I had to add fresh fuel to the thing just to get it to run right. Ethanol is great. You just have to make sure that you've got your 93 octane tune and you run 93 octane fuel through that thing about once every month, every 2 months. I just really wouldn't let it go more than 3 months without running gasoline through the thing to try to flush the system out. Because apparently it don't matter what you're dealing with. Pumps will corrode, lines can corrode. There's just all kinds of things that can go wrong when you've got high ethanol content fuel. In other words, if you get a tank that has high ethanol content, things can go wrong, even with 93 octane. Chuck's in. Let's see. Mark saying, imagine how stupid I felt realizing my RT didn't need to use premium. Yeah, run that thing on 89. That's the number that you're looking for. It won't hurt it to run on premium at all. In fact, it's not a bad idea to run it on premium, but I always ran mine on 89. The work truck runs exclusively on 89. And I feel like it gets better fuel economy too. Mark saying, so much money I could have saved running regular unleaded. Just goes to show that you should always read your owner's manual, folks. Yep. Let's see. Chuck's checking in. Let's see. With Mark. See, Mike saying, so thanks to the powers that be, air filters are starting to ask a bit of a premium here in Smoky, Washington State. Is there a good quality washable dry filter you can recommend? Quality washable dry filter? No. I would rather see you run something like a K&N where you can actually wash the thing. The dry filters are just way too restrictive. I've yet to see a dry filter flow anywhere near what a paper filter would flow, much less one of the cotton gauze filters. So stick with what works. Run a K&N if you need to. Clean that thing once a month if you have to, if it's that bad. But follow the proper procedures though. You're going to take the thing out of the car, you're going to rinse it out, you're going to oil it, let it sit overnight, and then put the filter in the car. That's the old school way to do it. That's what we used to do because of mass airflow sensors. Nowadays, you probably don't have to worry too much about that with most cars running MAP, but my Hellcat does still have a mass air sensor for what reason, I don't know. It's like a validation thing. Anyway, but yeah, no, K&N would be the right way to go. Again, there's just not a good dry filter I can dream of. AEM makes one, but I mean, that thing, it's like if you try to blow through it, it's like trying to blow through a rock. I mean, that thing's just brutal. Let's see. Oh, Rip's saying it, buddy. Ruben is running 930s with just a 2.4 upper on a ported blower and snout and stock throttle body. 2.4 upper is turning the piss out of that thing. I'm surprised he's not getting a bunch of belt slippage. But it looks like he's got a lot of work done to that blower, which is a good way to go. Let's see. Oh, Mark's hanging out with Chuck. Let's see. Oh, Donald's saying, thanks for the ride along. You got it. Oh, hey, listen, for you guys with draggies, if you've seen the draggy ride-alongs, I don't know why it's got the audio jacked up. I kind of sound like Dracula in those things. I don't know why that is either, but it's like the audio at some point is just really lagging in the video. So anyway, I wanted to bring you guys, along for the ride with that because, man, I was having those little draggy things a shitload of fun to play with. So, if you're not familiar with what a draggy is, it's this. It's a GPS box. It's about as big as like about as big as your key fob, actually. And it's real accurate. At the drag strip, I mean, that thing was dead nuts at the drag strip. And I was running, so I would run a 1058 and it would show that I ran a 1062 or a 1063 or something like that. It is consistently 0.03 of a second slower than the drag strip was. And if you look at mile an hour, the way that the draggy works, because there's no other real way to do this, I guess, it measures exit speed. And that's not exactly what your mile an hour is at the drag strip. Your mile an hour, you've got a speed trap, you've got it at the eighth and at the quarter of a mile. And what it is it's two beams, because every car has a different wheelbase. If you had, a Civic and then a crew cab extended, bed dually going down the track, you can imagine the short wheelbase Civic's going to trip that single beam, and then the truck's going to go deep at the same speed. So you get where I'm coming with this. Anyway, you've got one speed and then another speed, and they combine the two, divide by two, and that's what your average, that's what your trap speed is. That's why it's called a trap, because it's a speed trap. When you use the draggy, you're only measuring the exit speed, which is cool. I mean, that's, the speed is almost irrelevant if you know what the parameters are. So in this case, you're measuring an exit speed, not your speed trap speed or your trap speed, which was cool. Anyway, my mile per hour, my exit speed with the draggy was identical to my exit speed with at the drag strip, because my drag strip in the left lane was only measuring exit speed. The first beams weren't working, so you're only getting an exit speed mile per hour, and that was kind of cool. R Drive saying, hey, Mr. Mason, would you consider building a Sniper Cam 2.0? I've done it. It's called a Warlock. You can find that over at Dr. Differential. It's a pretty cool grind. It's like a Sniper Plus. It's not over the top. Little bit better in terms of mid-range power. I've got a couple of different configurations for the Warlock. One's got a lot more aggressive intake centerline. But the reality is that it's a proper street cam. That the problem is you can get real off campus when it comes to the Hemis, when it comes to camshafts. But a good solid tight LSA cam will always do well with those cars. But yeah, it's the Warlock grind, and it's over at Dr. Differential. So give him a shout. He can get you set up with that. Chuck saying, B, with a locked PCM, my performance shop said I would need a different one to do dyno tuning. Would aftermarket tuners like Diablo, etc., work without a new PCM? Well, to answer your question directly, you don't need a new PCM. You just need one that you have. The one that you do have, you need that one unlocked. There's nothing you can do tune-wise to those cars unless you have an unlocked PCM. Now, with that being said, there's plenty of stuff you can do without, unlocking that PCM, mainly in weight reduction, drag pack, wheel and tire setup. All of that can be done with the car without having to worry about voiding your warranty, which if you still have warranty left on your car, unlocking that PCM will absolutely void any warranty that you have with it. Unless you are just on a kissy, hug relationship status with your local dealer. So, know that coming into it. But, I mean, you're looking at, $250 for the unlock. And then, for, in this case, HP tuners, $350 in credits. And then whatever your tuner is going to charge you to tune the thing. So, definitely not a cheap way to go. For a lot of guys, I can tell you this, if you're not changing gears in the car, man, just put a drag radial on the back of the car and enjoy it for what it is. Because I can tell you my tune in my car, and I know this because I'm the guy that tuned it, The engine side doesn't have very much done to it at all. I've got fuel added to it. I've made some accommodations for rev limiters to accommodate the gear itself. And somebody's getting after it outside. I love it. And some accommodations, obviously, for that transmission tune. But, bro, y'all know that I don't have any timing in that tune, right? Like, you have to get to some real deep density altitudes to start getting to where it's actually affecting the timing on that car. Which blows everybody's mind, because that car has run the highest mile an hour and the lowest ET of any other car on pump gasoline without being tuned on boosting or something like that, some kind of, parlor trick there. And I call it a parlor trick, by the way, because it just takes somebody accidentally forgetting to put boosting in their car and going, yoo-hoo, money ain't a thing, and then they blow their shit up. So anyway, that's why I don't have any extra timing. I've got just enough timing in it to balance out a timing table in real low DA conditions, and that's it. And that's with me watching that, watching the knock sensor voltage. I'm not even looking at knock retard. I'm looking at knock sensor voltage specifically. So, anyway, good stuff there. But, yeah, you don't have to have a tune to have a good time with that car. Oh, Hemi's saying, hey, B, if you're looking for a stock type Hellcat filter, Rock Auto has the Mala LX 3482 for less than 20 bones. Them and Amazon, you could get them there. And I used to have one floating around over here so that you know the difference between the two. The Mala filter for the Hellcat, if this is the filter, will have 3 hot glue strips down the center of it. That's one of the ways that you'll know. You'll also know it real easy by seeing the printing that's on the side of that filter, and it will show it'll show flow rates. I think it's in grams per second, or so. I forget what it's in. I did a video showing how to convert all of that. And anyway, it's like 1100 CFM filter, so it's really difficult to beat that setup. Oh, Rip is saying that, yeah, his buddy's car did have the 105. That's what I figured you're going to have that if you're going to be turning those kind of numbers, if you're going to turn that thing that hard. And I think some of the guys, they automatically, when they're porting the snout, they should open it up to 105. I don't think you need any more than 105. Here's the thing, though, with the larger throttle bodies that aren't the stock unit. Not saying this is some of them have a nasty habit of surging. The Fastman surged the first time I installed it, and then it never surged again that I can remember. And it's not like it surges when you're under load. It's when you're barely tipping the throttle or you're just idle cruising. That sometimes you'll get a real slight, but that's not a big deal. I'm used to stuff being way worse than that. So anyway, my car, after the first time I put that on my car, I think it was after the first time. Maybe it's the second time. It quit. It was completely unnoticeable after that. Let's see. R Drive saying thank you. Not a problem. Let's see. Oh, him saying, oh, he took the plunge and got with a tuner and tuned his 18 Scat Pack engine and trans tune. Very good. Took some data logging on the street and drag strip, but it feels better and my times are better. Absolutely, they will be. Big part of that's going to be in that trans tune. Chuck's saying he's got an RT shaker running excellent, but a set of Nittos would help his ET. Yes, they would absolutely help. Tri-5R2 is a good overall tire. As ugly as it is a damn good tire. And he's saying, kind of need to learn how to launch my car again to get my consistency back as the torque comes on sooner and the shifts are slightly harder in sport mode. Yeah, he's probably got your driver command torque bumped up. I like this combination. Joe's saying got an RT 8-speed with a 390 rear diff, getting ready to put a 274 comp and long tube, I'd put a different cam in it, though. It's not going to like that cam. And long tube was thinking to port stock heads. Don't port the stock heads. You don't need it. And haven't decided if I want the 392 intake. How well do you think it would be with nitrous? First of all, I don't like the comp 274. It's an old design. It's got a the 274 has got a 116 degree lobe separation angle, if memory serves me correctly. Way too wide for a car with those heads. You need to tighten that up quite a bit. I would say give Dr. Differential a shout and get one of the Joker grinds. The Joker is going to have a significantly tighter lobe separation angle, and he has installed a bunch of that Joker cam in 5.7s, and they've done exceedingly well. He's got some videos of him lining up with LS3 Camaro, bolt-on and Camaro. A lot of good things going on with that cam profile. It's basically a 220, 230 cam, but the under the curve lift numbers are really high. It is an aggressive cam, so you will have to go with the cam kit that you get, which will include PSI 15-16 springs, larger push rods, stanky tie bars and collars, and the works to keep that thing durable. It's an aggressive cam, but it's definitely a good cam nonetheless. And it sounds really good. But he can walk you through that. There's some other grinds out there that are a little bit softer, but I can tell you that for the most part, that 274 on a 5.7, I've driven a 5.7 with the 274 grind, and it's a fun grind, but you never feel the cam kick in. It just revs, but it never really, like, you can punch it in that car and it just launches. It doesn't, there's no theater to the thing. But anyway, that would be my suggestion. If you've already got the 274 coming, it will be an upgrade to your stock cam, and with that 390 gear, it's going to be a riot out of the hole. So no matter how you go, that'll be a fun car to drive. Chuck saying he hasn't perfected launch control of the 6-speed Tremec. Takes a little bit of practice. And Riff's saying, I feel like launch control it's absolutely useless. And at your power level, at any power level, even on the 392 cars, it's pointless. He's saying, nobody I know uses Dodge launch control. Interesting to play with, but two-footing gets better times. Yes, it does. What's funny is that at this point, I'm treating my brake pedal like a clutch pedal. So not that I'm slowly coming off the brake. It's just that's always how I've driven automatics, is two-footing. Joe saying, damn, wish I would have known. I've had this kit for about a year now. Was told it needs a 3,800 RPM stall to help. It does. But it's got a wide LSA, so it's easy to tune. It's just got a lot of duration, and I think the intake center line on that thing is like 110, which can make it a little bit soft if it is a 110 on a 116. 110 is fine if you're on a 113 or a 112. What that'll do is it'll make a peaky cam kick over a little bit and make power on the big end a little bit better. But on a 116, like for example, if I were putting together anything on a 116, like a blower grind, first of all, it would be a positive displacement supercharger. I'll put it like this: the Comp 274, all bull aside, is a really good positive displacement supercharger cam. And to God, that cam in a PD car is really good because of how it comes in on the power. It's late coming into the power, which is one of the reasons why a converter is suggested with that cam. But it is late coming on with the power, and because it's on a 116, it's trying to push the power even further out. The wider your LSA, the further out it's going to try to make power. The tighter it is, the more overall power it'll make, but at some point, it's going to start to nose over because of efficiencies and pumping losses. You just literally can't get the exhaust out fast enough. So that would kind of give you an idea as far as where that cam really does well. I was shocked how good a cam that is for positive displacement cars. If you ever decide to go blower, by the way, if you wanted to go with like a Vortec, go with like the Vortec. Geez, how old am I? One of the new ProCharger setups. Tight lobe separation angle will be just fine with that. People go, it'll blow the fuel out of it. That is some bonfire logic, and it doesn't work. You want that tighter LSA and a real basically what you would do with a centrifugal supercharger is you put together a cam that naturally aspirated. The car would make peak power. Let's say you wanted the car to make peak power at 6,100 RPM. I would put together a cam that would try to make naturally aspirated the car make peak power at like 5,500 RPM, because the raising boost curve will just keep pushing power further and further out, and you get to keep all the power down low. There's a lot of tricks to the game when it comes to cam profiling and specifying and things like that. So just keeping you informed as far as where you're at, where that cam falls in line. Frederick's checking in, saying, what's cooking, B? What's up, Frederick? Got the bald dude with the shades and the flexing. I like it. Riff's asking, what's the benefits, if at all, to a dual throttle body versus a single? So the dual throttle body helps to promote velocity. That's the big thing. It helps down low. When you have a big throttle body, like let's say this is just this big ass throttle body, like you're putting this on a 1.3 liter 4-cylinder. When this thing opens up, when it barely cracks open, that engine is going to immediately hemorrhage vacuum. And what that does is it hemorrhages and it kills velocity. So you lose all of your velocity stacking on the intake valve. And this is part, like, if you listen to old school builders, they'll talk about stacking. What's the other term that they would use for it? Anyway, long story short, you need velocity running through the runners to stack air on top of the intake valve. Depending on the runner length, I'll bore you to tears. I can start really going off on a tangent here. But when you promote velocity through the system, the vacuum, the partial vacuum, will help increase velocity, and that velocity helps stacking effect, and it allows the car to be punchier, if you will. Partial throttle drivability goes up. Partial throttle horsepower and torque goes up. With the dual blade throttle body. When you open it up to that big oval, a lot of things happen. Remember what I was talking about with that transmission tune? This is where a lot of transmission tuning has to take place. And again, I learned all of this stuff working with Lightnings back in the day, and guys wanted that big ass AccuFab throttle body. And well, that's cool, but you barely touch the throttle and it would start drawing air in like crazy. So you really start messing with throttle shift points at that point. I mean, you're just bumping the thing further and further and further up so that it acts like a decent car, and it's not just accelerating through shifting, and you get into like it's making X number of power, but it's the line pressure isn't high enough. You see a lot of weird little things happen when you start jacking with the actual throttle body itself. So same thing applies when you start messing with these Hellcats. It's the same kind of idea, because nothing's changed here. And the tables, the way that they're set up, they're all done by voltage, by actual throttle body voltage. So at certain voltages, it perceives that to need a certain amount of line pressure, a certain RPM that it's going to shift at, etc. So a lot of it, believe it or not, has nothing to do with the engine. Has everything to do with the transmission, and that's where knowing the effects of the larger throttle body and getting in there and playing with it and getting this stuff sorted can really make a difference for you, especially for partial throttle stuff. What is this on my screen here? Oh, Himmy said he's got one of the last set of the NT Tri-5R tires sold before they discontinued. It seems like the rubber is harder than the previous set of NT5Rs. I'm kind of looking forward to needing new tires now. I had heard that. Yeah, that sucks. I hate to hear that because I love the Tri-5s. Hey, Chuck, thank you very much. Say, I'm glad to be here with my Mopar brothers and sisters. Glad to have you, brother. Thank you for that contribution to the cause. I do appreciate it. Oh, Hemi said a while back he teased us with some street drag radials in the 305/3520. Is that still in the process? There's a lot still in the process with that. There's been a ton of materials shortages across all manufacturing. It's not just tires. It's adhesives in general. It's mastics. It's everything. So the first run of those tires, which won't be in 20s, by the way, it'll be in the 17s, we're hoping will be released, I would say end of the year, maybe. There's a lot going on with that. But I can tell you that stay tuned. Hoosier is going to be coming out with some really cool stuff. So stay excited. But know this, you can still get DBRs, which are not necessarily street legal, but have proven themselves to be an extremely good tire. So just something to think about. Oh, Rich say, his dailies are the 305/3020 MTSS. Damn good tire, man. In fact, I might be switching. My daily on the 20s, maybe moving towards that option here pretty quickly. Cole's asking, are catback exhaust systems worth it? Depends on what you are talking about worth. What is your conditions of worthiness, I guess I should say. So what you will run into with aftermarket catback is that they will not perform better than stock, usually. I'm talking about Hellcats and SRTs here, Scat Packs, for example. For the RTs, though, yeah, you need to get the stock. It's like I said, the shop's near Velocito, and the boys are going out and having a good time. So when you hear that, that's what's going on. They'll come by and they'll pipe up before they head out. So no, for an RT, get that stock axle back, cat back, whatever you want, get that off your car because it's heavy, it doesn't flow well, and there are better alternatives out there for you. So, but just do me a favor, okay? Just help me out here. Do not get out there with your Sawzall and start hacking mufflers off your car. It sounds awful. Get a tuned exhaust. Put something that classes the thing up a little bit and gives it some rumble. The problem is a lot of guys will get out and start cutting off mufflers and it just gets raspy and it doesn't sound right. Plus, it's annoying after a while. Believe me, it's cool for about, 15 minutes. And then after that, you're just like, somebody shut this thing up. And that ain't an old man thing. That's just a real talk thing because I love me some loud, but I like quality loud. I don't like that shrill kind of sound of loud. I just, I feel like I'm getting yelled at by my wife. I don't want that. I don't like that. So get something that's got a good tone to it. I like Corsa. MagnaFlow is another good one. Go that route if you really want to get the most out of it. Really, if you want to get the most out of a 5.7, find somebody that is putting a set of long tubes and a catback on their car and get their shorties and their stock system, their stock catback or cats and catback out of their car. You can save you some cash along the way and it will sound beautiful. I mean beautiful with a 5.7. It's one of the best sounding cars out there, and it's one of these unsung heroes. You'll never hear of it, never see it. But if you get a 5.7 and you put the 6.1/Hellcat/6.4 manifolds on it, which keep underhood heat down, by the way, it's the reason why I like to recommend them. You can take it another step if you wanted to and grind down some of the casting flash at the flange, but you don't really have to do that. But the high flow cats that come on those cars, and then those catbacks with the smaller displacement, it sounds so freaking good, and it is more exhaust than that car needs, and it can take advantage of it is what I'm really getting at. So that, along with, I mean, you know, ported manifold with a throttle body, and you'll be fine. Now, if you're asking me if the 6.4 manifold works, yeah, the 6.4 manifold works as long as you get a window switch. Now, I'm going to caution you here. You would have to have a window switch because it's a dual function intake manifold. I wouldn't worry so much about that. I think you start getting into details really more than anything else. Have your stock intake manifold blueprinted, ported, if you will. Just have it cleaned up. It can definitely help. It can't hurt, if anything else. A lot of times those manifolds do have a lot of casting flash in them. Maybe put a bigger throttle body on it. In fact, it would be one of these from Dr. Differential, one of the 85s, the billet units. I mean, this is the casting that they use. This is one of the prototypes. I use this for porting those manifolds, as a matter of fact. Go that route with that exhaust, and the car is going to run great. In fact, in testing, just so you know, that 5.7 manifold did basically about as well as a 6.1 manifold does. So, no reason to get nutty. Just stick with what you got. Oh, Joe's asking, thanks, I remember that when I built my next 5.7, but do you think the 5.7 will handle a 150 shot? Got to get real specific when you ask questions like that. Will it handle a dry shot? No, you're going to blow it up. Will it handle a standalone wet shot? If it's done right, yeah, absolutely it will. That would be about the extent of what I would run on one, but yeah, no, that $150 ain't going to hurt it. Provided it's done the right way, and that's with a standalone wet shot. Get ready to paper up on that because it ain't going to be cheap. You'd almost be better off at that point putting an E-Force on it. Just saying. Because you start looking at what a Nitrous controller costs, standalone kit, a standalone fuel pump, fuel pressure regulator, fuel line there, fuel line back. You're regulating it at the tank. On your return, you've got, let's see. Let me think about this for a minute. Got all that going on. And the tune and everything else that's going to go along with it. By the time it's all said and done, it's going to be really pricey. Yeah, it would be more expensive to put an E-Force on your car, but you can justify that with the fact that that E-Force is on all the time, and you're going to pick up at least 125 horsepower with that thing. So I would say save up. If the car's not a daily, dude, ain't no sin in saving, bro. I mean, dude, I've eaten salads and beanie weenies and ramen noodles and everything else, saving up for hot rod parts. So I would probably suggest going that route if you just really want to build something sweet. If you just want to hit the thing with a $150, I would say start out with a 100 shot first. Make sure your tune is spot on. You're going to need at least one step colder plugs. So go from the TR6s to a set of TR7s. Let's see, what else? A bunch of little things to go along with it. But at the end of the day, you'd have a pretty strong running car. The good thing about the 5.7 though is that it's not a 392 in this respect. The 392 on a $150 will start to shatter HP70 transmissions. Or should I say, it will start to burn up HP70 transmissions. The 5.7 making less power, it just doesn't make enough power to hurt the 70 the way that the 392s do. In other words, you can have fun with a 5.7 and in ways that you just can't have fun in 392s. And this is where numbers just do not matter, man. If you're out there playing with the thing on the street, that nitrous hits, it's going to feel the same whether you've got a 392 or a 5.7. That number percentage of hit, in fact, is higher because you're starting out with a lower horsepower number. So 5.7 for a fun hot rod on the street is actually almost preferable in some cases. Anyway. Oh, Rift is talking about a 5.7 6-speed car. Yeah. A lot of them out. Yeah, the engine itself, you don't have to worry about. Just make sure you're doing it right. Just saying, I don't want to scatter it until I get a new 5.7 built. True that. Oh, Amy's saying, good to hear that. I can wait. I need a new DOT tire, though. I love the previous NT Tri-5R. Dude, man, me and you both. You know, Borla's good, too, by the way, Chuck. But, yeah, no, the Tri-5, man, oh, God, what a good tire, man. Was the right size, had the right look. It was sedate. It wasn't trying to get all the attention on the rim. You know, it's just a good-looking tire in the way that the Mickey Thompson is now. As a matter of fact, the Mickey Thompson is really hard to beat in the looks department. It's one of the reasons why I love my drag pack setup. You know, it's just like the Hoosiers. Just say Hoosier. Smooth rubber, some data on the tire. That's all I need. So, the new tires, they're just so damn busy. Like, don't try to... I don't need my tire to be trying to get attention. Like, what are you doing? Just, that's what my rims are there for. That's what my car is there for. Just be a tire. And I'll burn them up and I'll keep buying them. Another reason why I like Aturos, I think my Aturo is actually a pretty clean looking tire too. I have to go back and look. No, wait, no, it is kind of an ugly tire now that I think about it. Anyway, that's what's on the front of my car for my street setup. Aturo, AZ850, baby. Love those tires. Joe's saying, mine stops at the mid-pipe, and I love it. Look, there's a seat for every ass. I mean, I get it. I've had some louds, dude. My Black Lightning was ridiculously loud. I was basically straight pipes with an H-pipe, but thing sounded like a freaking machine gun going down the track. Oh, Riff's saying, I see a lot of dual throttle blade setups on Mustang. Is there a reason for that? Yeah, it's they're promoting velocity with those things. When you go, and that's really a drivability thing. When you go to like an oval throttle body, again, when you start looking at that oval throttle blade, especially for automatics, it jacks with your trans tune like you wouldn't believe. Like it's a side effect that you would probably not have anticipated, but it is definitely a real thing nonetheless. For the manual cars, the other thing you got to think about is sometimes that single blade throttle body can make the car a little bit jerky to drive if you have a manual car. It can make throttle modulation a little bit more sensitive, just a little bit jerkier. So that's one of the reasons why you see them. And at a certain point, the difference really isn't all that great. I didn't see a huge difference. Well, I say I didn't see it. I saw a fairly decent difference with my AccuFab on the Lightning, but I liked the way that the truck drove better with the dual blade throttle body. Again, it just felt torquier. It felt snappier. In fact, it felt like, well, my Hellcat felt very similar to that, even with the throttle that was only slightly larger. And maybe just because subconsciously I was thinking about it, but I was like, man, the car at tip in, like at a quick tip in, it felt snappier actually with the stock throttle body, whereas the pulleyed red eye felt snappier with the aftermarket throttle body, with the Fastman. So just weird stuff out there. Super Fit, what's up? Thank you very much. Saying, what's the most horsepower I can get out of my red eye and keep 93 octane, and what would I have to do mods to do it? I answered this question the same way for years now with whether it's a Hellcat or a red eye. The most you can get out of it on 93 is stock horsepower number. I don't want to hear that, but here's the reality of what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a moving target. When it comes to fuel quality, you have to make some concessions in the tune. This is the reason why my car, I don't throw a lot of timing at it. Even where I do throw timing at it, I can tell you that the red eye tune is a little soft by comparison when we're talking about like the Hellcat versus the red eye tune file itself. If you look at it air charge for air charge, not cell for cell, because that'll really throw you off. But if you look at it air charge for air charge, the red eye will consistently be at least a degree, if not 2 degrees or more in some cases, less timing than the Hellcat at that same air charge. The reason for that is because of a significantly higher manifold temperature with that 2.7. So you have to have a lower timing value to accommodate a higher discharge temperature out of that blower. That higher discharge temperature can aid in pre-ignition, and that's one of the reasons why they keep that timing value kind of low. The nannies, what you'll notice going down the track, so let's do like an A-B comparison of a stock red eye on a drag pack versus my car, gear corrected, 309 gear, on a drag pack with what little tune that I have in my car. By the way, my tune on the transmission side looks eerily similar to a red eye shift point strategy. It's not exact, but after going back and looking at my tune and then comparing that to a stock red eye tune, or actually it was a stock demon tune, I was going, that's pretty close. But anyway, the difference is that the red eye will get out on me because the red eye is simply making more torque than I am down low. Traction for traction, and then somewhere around the 8th mile marker, we will literally be door handle to door handle, and I mean literally, I will start to catch up, and about the 8th mile marker, I am door handle to door handle with that car. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but eventually I will catch up and I will get around that red eye. But it is a driver's race, and it was proven when Whitemare was driving his dad's car when it was stock. He got out on me and just got out on me. And even though I was reeling him in, there just was not enough real estate. So that's how that race typically goes. And the reason for that is because there are some nannies that reel that red eye in a little bit. Now, you can eliminate some of the nannies and pick up some ET on the back half of the track. You're not picking up mile per hour. You're not picking up horsepower. You're just reclaiming horsepower. So in some cases, just like with money, it's not how much you spend, it's how much you save. And in this case, you're just saving more power further down the drag strip. That is what I would focus on more than anything else. Don't worry about the power number, because the power number is really irrelevant if you are pulling timing due to heat-related nannies on the big end of the track. I will say that with those changes, and I'm not going to guarantee an ET pickup or anything like that, but I can tell you that a stock red eye, it's pretty easy on E85 to cover a 9-second pass out of that thing, where, I mean, I could do it with my car too, but it's, I think, easier with a red eye because it's so hard hitting out of the hole. But again, that's on E85, and you didn't ask about E85, but I'm bringing it up only to offer to you that it takes E85 to really start to eliminate the timing deficit that you have with that car versus a Hellcat, if that helps to illustrate that a little bit. But again, with 93 octane, stick with the stock power. Just look at heat-related nannies more than anything else to try to reclaim what you lose due to that at the back half of the track. Now, what have we seen on the dyno? I can tell you that we tried every trick in the book as far as timing goes to try to drag more power out of the demons and the red eye. And early on, what I think I did a sweep of, oh, what was it? Like was it 2 degrees, 3 degrees? I couldn't get anything really on 93 octane. And it was weird because knock sensor sensitivity wasn't a problem. It was not really even a fuel quality issue. It's just the cars were not responding to timing. Go figure. Where a Hellcat would put down 600 to the rear wheels, a healthy one, a red eye / demon would be, I mean, it's like the number was identical, 653 or 658. It just, however the dyno was reading that day. In other words, they were extremely consistent at like, say 655, for lack of it, just split the thing in the middle. And, but sweeping timing, I think we picked up on a cool down pass like 15 horsepower or something like that. It was irrelevant number, and you see it on the dyno, but it's like it's there, but it's really not. It's like it's window dressing more than anything else. But anyway, that hopefully answers your question. Reclaim more than try to add to it. Let's see. Oh, Riff saying I did a mid-muffler delete on my Hellcat, but as soon as I went to E85, it got a lot quieter. Yeah, it will, because you got a lot more fuel mass. If I chop off the resonators also, do you think it will drone? Yes, it will absolutely drone. So as you guys know, I did that pipes reso delete on my car. Not for power, not even for sound, honestly. I just don't like the looks of the resonators hanging underneath there, man. It breaks up that upward kind of slight curve of the rear quarter panel, and you just get this. It's a cylinder, obviously, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. So I got rid of them for that, and found myself, because it's a 3-inch, I found myself having to wrap stuff and heat wrap and reposition wires and all this other stuff. It's like, God dang, I should have just gone to a muffler shop and just done a flat reso delete right there at the pipe and just stuck a pipe on the end with some tips or something. But anyway, I went the fancy route. Boy, have I paid for that. But anyway, nothing's gotten hurt, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I had to go through and just literally chase every wire in there, wrapping it, rerouted a lot of wires underneath there, and just getting them away from those pipes, even though they're not that hot that far back on the car. But anyway, I'm going to be a little bit anal retentive if nothing else. But will it drone? Yeah, it'll drone a little bit. My car is just a tad louder than stock. In fact, my car just sounds like it's got a catback on it with those resos deleted. It doesn't really bother me that much driving it around, but you can tell a little bit of a difference. And I will say this, it doesn't matter what mode I'm in. So it doesn't matter if the butterflies are wide open or completely shut. It sounds the exact same out of the back of that car. Butterflies don't do a damn thing. Let's see. Tux is in. What's up, buddy? Saying, all right, I'm back. Just got distracted watching Knight Rider videos. Hell yeah. Knight Rider's tight. So they were doing a, what channel was it? It was Best TV Show of the 80s. And Knight Rider was in a tie or a runoff with, I forget what it was. Anyway, Knight Rider's pretty tight. KB's asking, what do you all like better, supercharger or turbocharger setups? Bro, it depends 100% on what I'm going to be doing with the vehicle. So let's walk through that for a minute. Let's kind of unpack that question, because there's a lot to it. Number one, positive displacement supercharger just makes a big engine feel like a bigger engine. The problem is that it feels like a lazier big engine. It's not like just a whap, 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 like a really high-strung, naturally aspirated engine. If you've never driven a high-strung, naturally aspirated engine, they are the funnest to drive out of all of them, because fun has nothing to do with power. But a big positive displacement supercharger is going to feel soft in a way. It's going to make a ton of torque, don't get me wrong, but it is an overhand right punch in a fight where speed matters, if that makes any sense. It's kind of a weird way to explain it, I know, but it's like trying to land a power punch on somebody that won't get hit. And what I mean by that is that all that power is down low, and you sacrifice top end power with a positive displacement supercharger. It's just how it works. There's always a trade-off. It doesn't matter which power adder you're talking about. They have their unbelievable strength, and then they have a really annoying weakness, and then there's everything in the middle. So, positive displacement supercharger, fat and happy. The reason why OE manufacturers use positive displacement superchargers is because you can take a 5-liter engine and make it act like a 7-liter engine, just like that. And lots of torque, lots of fun to drive, instant gratification. So you go from that supercharger to a turbocharger. I'm going to talk about centrifugal here in just a second, but the centrifugal is there to take away some of the headaches of a turbocharger. Let me explain what I mean by that. First of all, nothing is more efficient than a turbocharger. Parasitic loss on a positive displacement supercharger can be extreme because you've got all these very heavy components that you have to turn, and there's a lot of heat involved in that. So lots of parasitic loss. You could have, let's say you've got, we're going to talk just like numbers here real quick. Let's say you have a positive displacement supercharger that takes, like in the Hellcat, 80 horsepower to turn it. It takes, let's call it 100 horsepower because it'll help keep numbers a bit more manageable. Let's say that takes 100 horsepower to drive the supercharger that's in my car. A turbocharger would only take, say, 25 or 20 horsepower to turn. So you get this 80 horsepower gift. There you go, right here, okay? Yes, there is parasitic loss associated with turbos, but it is far less than what you would find in a positive displacement supercharger at the same boost level, okay? So why are turbochargers so much more efficient? Well, that's part of the reason why. And again, that's the reason why you don't see superchargers on 18-wheelers. You don't see them on locomotives. You don't see them on earth-moving equipment, at least rarely. Detroit diesels have them, but only because it's an air mover. That's the only reason why, because it's a two-stroke. But you don't see superchargers on them because they are that much less efficient. I can have a much higher torque number and a much higher horsepower number with a turbo at that same boost. So turbos are great at making power, and they're really good at making torque, but they have to be sized properly to do so. A really big turbo makes really big power because there's no back pressure to it, but the problem is that you got to wait forever for the thing to spool up, and when it does, it all hits at once. It makes it real hard to manage. There is no direct connection from the turbo to your foot. That's the other thing about turbochargers that you have to remember versus supercharger. Because the superchargers, whether it's positive displacement or centrifugal, is driven by the engine, it is, by association, more or less driven by your foot. By demand is really the better way to put it. Turbo is a little bit different. You get into the throttle, if the turbo is not spooled up, you're waiting because of turbo lag. Little turbo spools up really quickly. You don't really maybe even notice that it's got a turbo if it's tuned in the right way. You just don't have the peak power that you would have if you had a bigger turbo. You just don't have the lag either, though. If I'm building a car, what would I want? If you want outright power, you go with a turbo. But you have to be able to manage that power. That's where the centrifugal supercharger comes into play. Let's say you want to make a car go down the quarter mile, or you want to play with a car on a closed course or something like that. It's more of a race car than a street car. Street cars, turbos are fun because when they come on real hard, lots of torque, and you can just hoon the thing and have a blast. But if you want to control the power, what you do is you take that same basic power number that you're going to want to get to. Let's say you want to make, I don't know, 600 horsepower, 800 horsepower, doesn't matter what the number is. You get to that number with the supercharger, and yeah, you're going to have to run more boost because, and this is a centrifugal, by the way, because you're going to have higher parasitic loss. By the way, centrifugal superchargers have less parasitic loss than a root supercharger, but you can still run into belt slippage and things like that with these things because you have to turn them so fast. Anyway, I digress. Yes, you lose the torque through the mid-range, but that torque could have been so high with a turbo that it's just going to blow the tires off. So it's like a sleight of hand way of torque management. You just don't make the torque. But here's the other thing: you can throttle. You can be wide open throttle with that centrifugal supercharger, and you don't have to have the penalty of the tires going up in smoke. Whereas the turbo, you will have to throttle it, and turbos don't like being throttled. So again, you get the throttle, you get back into it. The turbos have to spool back up again. So for outright power as a light switch, turbo is the only way to go, hands down. If you've got to make a bunch of power and you need to do it for an extended period of time, can't beat a turbo. If you want instant throttle, instant boost, instant gratification, obviously the positive displacement's the way to go. And if you're building something that you want to have more control over the torque management, but you still have a requirement for top end rush, like roll racing, for example, like in a vet or anything like that, I would probably recommend going with a centrifugal supercharger primarily so that you can control how the boost comes on. And yeah, I get it. Turbos are cool. By the way, turbo is the ultimate cheat code because a turbo car will run the same at sea level that it would run at pick an altitude. It doesn't matter. As long as you've got enough turbo to match the manifold pressure that you're trying to get to, like say you're trying to make 18 pounds of boost. And 18 pounds of boost is what your fuel will manage, no matter what the altitude, by the way, theoretically. 18 pounds of boost at sea level, you'll still make 18 pounds of boost provided your turbos are big enough at a higher altitude, just with more lag, because you're making less power naturally aspirated. You need that power to spool them up, but you'll still make that power. That's why, again, turbo cars, again, ultimate cheat code. If you need more power, you just turn the power, turn the boost controller up, and you're there. And on the street, if you're building a fast street car and you just want something to play with, I mean, really, turbos are really hard to beat. Positive displacement and turbos both have their place, and they work extremely well at what they do. The downside to a centrifugal supercharger, I hate to say this, they can feel a little bit weak by comparison. It's not to say they're not making the number, okay? And don't take this the wrong way, Cinti guys. I'm right there with you. I've had more I've had just as many centrifugals. One of the trucks just flew by. Just as many centrifugal supercharged cars as I have had positive displacement. I've only had, how many turbo cars have I had? 1, 2. Anyway, I understand that they can feel a little bit numb on their way to making power, but they're doing that in a way that keeps traction in check. So there's that, unless you go big boost with one of those things and then all bets are off. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. I don't think that it did very well though. Supercharged, hey, Superior Fit, thank you very much. Saying thank you for your expertise, man. Thank you for the contribution, brother. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Oh, JPZ, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Saying big fan of the channel. Thank you. Appreciate that. Saying, do I think that a 6.1 Jeep Grand Cherokee will see modest gains with the cam headers, no cats, and an 85mm throttle body? Of course it will. But don't get nutty with the cam. I would say, something like really anything like a 220, 228, 222, 228, 230-ish cam. will be real happy in that thing. Go with a cam with like a intake center line of like 107, 108. The lift doesn't matter with those heads. It'll flow whatever you need. But that's the way to go with that. 85 millimeter throttle body. Yep, absolutely. You'll be good to go with that. So, yeah, fun truck. I mean, those things are a lot of fun when you start getting them in that state of tune. Here's the thing I like about the 6.1. I get a lot of, there's always so much sibling rivalry when it comes to 6.1 versus 6.4. And to me, they're like my kids in a way. I mean, you look at one of them, you go, God, just should have fucking told her I had a headache. Anyway, but no, seriously, you get some of them that, some folks just get real worked up. 6.1 or nothing, 6.4 nothing. Look, I love all of them. The cool thing about the 6.1 is that that's like the Mopar LS. It's a lot more simple. It's just a old school way of doing things in a way, if you want to think of it. It doesn't have the cam thing. It doesn't have the intake thing going for it. I get that makes a lot of power. And obviously there's a reason why they did that. But damn it, the 6.1 isn't just as pretty as could possibly be. So, a cam, I'll put it like this. This is what I would put together for your car. I would say 222, 228-ish, intake center line of like 108, LSA of like 113 or 112, with like, I don't know, 580 lift on both sides. It doesn't really matter at that point. Obviously I'd want you to go updated non-MDS lifters. So the Hellcat lifters with the, 080 push rods, would be a fun setup for that. But I would probably recommend headers and high flow cats to go along with it. But in that case, yeah, that'd be a real fun truck for you. But yeah, no, you'd love it. Jermaine, thank you very much. Hey, saying traded his 2019 RT for a 2018 Scaddy. The driving experience is completely different. And yes, I would agree with you 100%. Love me some Scat Packs. Love RTs, love all of them. But yeah, going from the 5.7 to the 6.4 is going to be a monster of a difference. And I think you're going to like the 6.4 a whole lot. And look, for you guys with the 5.7s, I love y'all too. I love that combination. For y'all that have been around the channel for a while, one of the builds that I wish I would have done, first of all, I wish we were just more into 5.7s. We just did not have any 5.7s ever showing up at the shop. It was like, you'd have 10 Hellcats, 6 392s, and 1 5.7. And that 5.7 was probably going to be a truck. So, we just did not have that much 5.7. We just didn't have that much going through the shop. But I will say this: there's one of the builds that I wish I would have done is a 5.7. But I can understand completely going to a 6.4 because, man, they are just that much better in a lot of ways. Just because that's how the factory made them. They're better exhaust, bigger engine, better intake. And then everything that goes along with it. So congratulations on the new hot rod. I think you will enjoy it. JPZ, thank you very much for the contribution, buddy. Let's see. Bear with me here. Let me get back up here. I lost track. Here, let's go. SRT Shadow saying, would a 90mm throttle body be good for a stage 2 222 230 cam kit, ported heads and manifold? Let's see, headers, no cats, no mufflers, forced pistons, end rod, nitrous coming soon. No, not really, because you don't need more throttle body if you're running nitrous. That bottle of nitrous oxide, that oxygen that's in there, you're feeding it with the nitrous. So your throttle body at that point won't do you any good at all. So I would say in your case, if you got a ported throttle body, go with maybe the Fastman 84, give Dr. Differential in Speed a shout, go with an 85. The only difference is that snout really does need work to get those parts, those throttle bodies. you really do need to port the snout and the throat the right way. The snout, I might as well call it a snout, to really get the most out of those throttle bodies. But if you're running nitrous, stick with the stock throttle body, because again, you're not drawing in more air because of the nitrous. You're pumping the nitrous into the engine, and actually you're running the car a lot on the nitrous at that point. Whatever air you're bringing in is just there to feed the engine outside of what the nitrous is bringing in. So kind of a top tip. A lot of guys think that when you put nitrous on a car, a bigger throttle body is going to help it run better. It's absolutely not the case. You're giving it oxygen with the nitrous oxide. But the 222, 230 cam, very popular cam. Superior Fit's asking, I heard I can just do a 317 upper pulley and turn the boost up. Is this true? Grr. So, no. Well, yeah, you can. Just make sure that credit card's primed and ready to go, brother. The thing is that no, you really don't want to do that. Depending on your altitude. See, here's the thing. Products like a 317, a Ripa, the Hellraiser stuff, all of that. By the way, if you go with any pulley that's not clutched, pin your crank. Please pin your crank if you go with a pulley that's not clutched. But here's the deal. When you pulley a car, you have to have a few things. You have to have an understanding of tuning. I don't have my computer, and I really would prefer that I had it in front of me so I could show you what I'm talking about. But there is an air charge table, and that air charge table is what your timing table is basing its timing profile on. So let's say that you live at sea level or 500 feet, like say you're in Dallas, Texas, and you live at about 500 feet actual elevation. That means at 0 DA from Houston would be a 500 DA in Dallas. The oxygen density, even though say the temperatures are the same, is going to be slightly less at 500 feet. And by slightly, I mean it is exactly 1.5% less air at that point. As you go up in altitude, that trend carries forward. For every 1,000 feet, you lose 3% of available oxygen, which means you lose 3% of available power. This is just the old aviator altitude correction table. If you have a 100 horsepower engine at sea level, at 1,000 feet, you've got basically a 70 horsepower engine. Or I'm sorry, at 1,000 feet, you've got a 97 horsepower engine. And the higher up you go, the more power you're going to lose. It's basically 3% per 1,000 feet. With some, depending on how high you want to try to fly, you can lose as much as 70% or only have roughly 70% of your power left available. So what does all that mean? Well, what that means is let's say you live in, the stereotypical Denver, Colorado, where you're 5,000 feet up, where you've lost 15% of your available power. By the way, this is part of what I was talking about with turbos. You would just hang the thing on the gate and make all your boost. You wouldn't have to pulley the thing up. Superchargers, on the other hand, you would have to pulley the car up to make the same amount of power, right? So as I would make at sea level. In that case, yes, you can put a pulley on your car and not have to worry about a tune, because theoretically the car is making, you're altitude correcting the car at that point. Oh, and your DA can really never be less than, say, 3,000 feet. So if your DA can really never be less than 3,000 feet, and you put a pulley on the car that maybe DA corrects it down to 2,000 feet, then it doesn't really matter, right? Because you're still working within what the table can adjust for. However, let's say you try that trick down here at sea level, or you're in Dallas, or you're somewhere that's maybe 1,000 feet, in elevation. Well, What'll happen is that you will put a pulley on the car that in certain conditions, when it's cold outside, will create a situation where you are outside of your airflow chart. And I showed this last year, or I should say about 8 months ago, in February. Well, we had real low temperatures, and I was doing the air filter testing. I did a live show where I had the air filter out, then I put the filter in, I took it out again, or all that, and I was showing, look, my car runs better, the timestamp is faster with the filter in the box. Well, if you noticed, towards the end of that video, I'm showing what my injector duty cycle is. And my injector duty cycle is like 104%. But my air charge was at 155, and my max in my table is 150. Think about that. Stock boost, in those conditions, I am outside of the parameters of the stock boost's ability to lower timing any further than what it was. So if you put more of the boost into the engine, let's say it's a couple of pounds of boost, but you cannot account for it because of your air charge table, you didn't mess with your air charge table, then you could be overtimed for the amount of boost, the amount of airflow that you've got going into that engine based on the quality of 93 octane that you're working with. So that's why I advise against it. Know your altitude and know what you can really get away with when it comes to trying to add pulleys without a tune. I would never, and I mean never, advocate putting a pulley on a car without a tune. I've seen it at the drag strip. I tried to save a guy that was going to run his car with a rip-a-tune. I saw his data. It was pulling timing all over the place. It was the slowest Hellcat on the property. And he's like, nah, I don't need a tune. They told me I don't need a tune. I'm like, dude, I'm kind of a little bit like, I'm about this life. And you might want to know that if I'm taking the time to tell you something, you might want to take the time to listen, because I'm trying to save you an engine. Saw him one more time, never saw the car again. Wonder what happened. So, not saying that I'm the guru or anything, but seen a few things. I've seen them go wrong. So that's the reason why you don't want to do it. Know your altitude. Yes, in some instances you can. In other instances, it's absolutely a big no-no. I would say that if you live at 1,500 feet, you could probably get away with it. If you live at 500 feet, you can probably not get away with it. Riv saying, I run that pulley on my cat. Superior saying, so stick with stock power and just add a tune. Yeah, I would. I mean, if you're just gonna, like, that's what I'm doing with mine. You can go there's a lot of different directions you can go with the car with stock tune or stock boost. I've chosen to try to get the most out of my car with the least amount of modification, and the least amount of danger because of the fuel quality that I'm running. Again, there are two cells that the car would see for probably at the most half a second, where I've got an extra couple of degrees of timing, and it's only to even out the timing table, where part of the stock tune is just dumping timing at that power at that level, and it's like, it doesn't make sense. That's not necessarily good. You could actually feel the car lay over. This is where testing at the drag strip makes a big difference. You could feel the car lay over at that DA when it would hit that cell. It was like, you'd almost think that something happened to the car. I put the timing in the car, and the car ran great through and didn't have any adverse effects with knock sensor voltage or anything like that. So, but yeah, those are just some things that, you just you have to do with some of the tunes, but I mean, you can definitely get there no matter what you're playing with. Riv saying the stock pulley on corn does pretty good for what it is. Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen stock pulleys on corn with weight reduction go high nines. So, I mean, there's that. There at one point, I was actually going to go that route, but I can't bring myself to do that to this car. I really like this car a lot. I do go to the drag strip a lot, but I do data log so much. And I just have not seen a reason to make the switch over to corn, throw, 2 or 3 degrees more of timing at it and go through all the hassles of that, because y'all, I have run into problems with E85 fuel quality on about a handful of times. And the issue with that is, luckily, it was not always with a Hellcat, but let me walk y'all through some scenarios. You remember Quick Brick, his car? He ran into it twice. I know that Racer X, where he gets fuel, I don't think he ever ran into a problem. There was a QT, I think, up there in Dallas where they were getting fuel, that the fuel quality was amazing. But just down here, man, it's real hit and miss, apparently, depending on where you're at. It can be real sporadic. But let me just tell you a story. There was a Hellcat on the Dyno, and it's just kind of a nothing thing. I forget, what was I think Alex was out of town. He had done everything to the tune, did all the injector data, which I just could not be bothered with because I kind of suck at it. He did the load testing on it, which I never really got to learn to do all the way through. I just didn't have enough experience at that time messing with it. So he had done all of that to the car, and I was doing timing sweeps with E85. And the car started running low on E85. It was just a twin pump. It might have been an injected engineering kit. No, not a big deal, not a 4-system. Anyway, long story short, went to the store, got E85, came back in the car, and for some reason, it was just me at the shop. And I was like, damn, let me just go through the straps again, because when it's just you at the shop and when you're the only one running the dyno, you kind of, there's like a ritual, and you kind of get OCD about the ritual, going through checking straps and everything. Anyway, the car was idling on the dyno, and I was running the straps in, and I just noticed it didn't smell like ethanol. I mean, you get used to corn, it smells like dirty socks. You just know what you're smelling. Anyway, long story short, it was like they had put gasoline in the E85 tank or something, and you could see it in the fuel trims on this E85 tune. And I was kind of running the car through the gears, and I went and hit the throttle and looked over, and injector duty cycle was just ramping up real quick, and I got out of it. It hit like 98% at like 4,000 RPM. No, it wasn't that high. I'm sorry. It was 78% at 4,000 RPM, and it should have been at like 60%. And if it would have been in anything else, you'd have been off the charts. But it was 98% freaking me out, and pulled the car off the dyno, and it was just a bad situation. But that's happened on a number of occasions where the cars that you would think, like the gas stations that you would think wouldn't have a problem with just going and getting pumped E85, not only was there a problem, but it could have been a significant problem. And the weird thing is that I didn't pick up on it the first time. The second time this happened, I did pick up on it. And that I'm talking about is the fact that the exhaust just didn't smell right. It didn't smell like corn. It didn't smell like the dirty socks that you normally associate with running E85. And I caught it as the car was being strapped down. I just went around and back. I smelled it. I was like, it's not E85. So that's why I didn't want to go E85. Even though it's stock boost, I would still be very aggressive with my timing tables. So my cylinder pressures would still be high, which would mean that if I had a bad tank of corn, I'd be in bad shape. You go, well, what about testing and all that? Yeah, okay, I get it. I understand all that. But am I really going to test every time I drive a thing? Probably not. I'm going to trust that the gas station knows what they're doing, at least kind of, maybe. So anyway, that's why I never went corn with mine. Plus, E85, there's a little bit of romance, but there's also a little bit of a stigma that comes with E85. E85's always been a little bit of an outlaw fuel. The problem is, with my car, I want to be able to relate with everybody. Whether you're in a place that has E85 or doesn't, has easy access to race gas, or you don't, I want my car, if nothing else, to at least be relatable across the board. Where, yeah, it's got a little bit of a tune on it. It's on a drag pack. It's an early release 2015, though, which is to say it's probably a little bit down on power, just because of reasons with the blowers on early cars. But yet it still has run a 1012. It's run so many 10-teens that I've lost track of them, all on good old-fashioned, just regular old pump gasoline. And if you go and look at my time slips right now, it's literally a mid 10-second car, like 10.5 something is what it's going to run. So, you know, and that's with the passenger seat in the car. So, you know, that's why I want to only run 93 octane. And truth be told, 93 octane, at least in my experience, has been real consistent, at least more consistent than what I've seen other ethanol fuels to be, even though you would think it'd be great because I live in the town where they refine this stuff. You get the idea? Oh, Rift is talking about torque and horsepower numbers. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. On a dyno jet, you can definitely do that. The most that we would see, most of the time, to be honest with you, guys didn't stick to ethanol on stock pulleys. And I mean, it would be on a dyno, it'd be on the Mustang dyno for the testing, but it would probably be in like the 730 range-ish, you know, 740 range. At the most with E85 on the Mustang dyno. So, I mean, it's in the noise, so to speak, of like a 295 or, you know, 317 up or something like that on pump gas. But again, you know, I just kind of, and not to mention, you know, me and dyno numbers, man, they are all over the board, and you know, percentage of where you started from is really the big one. Himmy's asking, ever check the Uconnect dyno page and all that to actual dyno numbers to see if onboard drive horsepower numbers are anywhere near stock for the crank? So yes, I have. I did. In fact, I'll do the math on it for you right now and see if it's close. Mine in cold weather hit, what did that thing hit? 721 is one of the numbers that I saw. You know, not overly that, yeah, 721. Not that far off. I mean, my car in wheel sensed mode made 666 to the rear wheels. And it green screen 666, and it made I think the chart, where is that? I'd have to dig it up. I think it's on that shelf over there. 660 to the rear wheels on that thing. But let's see, 660 divided by 0.85. I don't know, I think that'd be a little bit optimistic. It'd be like 770 horsepower at the flywheel. You know, it's close enough. You know, you start getting into those figures, you're getting into close enough figures, but 721, I'll take that. 721 to the rear wheels, you would expect that to be like 612 to the rear wheels, and on that dyno, depending on how it's reading, that could have been the number that it would pump out. So again, dyno numbers can be all over the board, but it's a fun video game to play no matter what. And like I say, I remember seeing 721. There could be some that were higher, but I don't know. That's how mine would shake loose. So about 0.9. Let's see something here. It'd still be about 15 or 20 horsepower off, no matter how you do the math on it. So. Oh, Hemi's saying after tuning, I'm seeing significant Uconnect dyno page horsepower increases. Don't really believe the numbers. It could, a lot of that could be how the injector data. You have to remember there's injector data that's included in that, and it's assuming a certain fuel mass. And one thing that I never did with mine is I never adjusted. I just left mine stock. I could probably, and there's a reason for that, because I'm kind of erring on the side of rich with my car. But if I were to go in and actually load test the car, I could probably take some of the fuel mass out of it, and that may show a higher number. But there's just other ways to play with it. But yeah, mine's probably realistically 15 horsepower off, give or take. And again, thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate it. And Tux is saying, yeah, the Knight Rider's a blast. My favorite fictional car ever. Even got the kit car, the KITT car. Very cool. Let's see. Oh, Hemi's saying before tuning, they seem pretty accurate and in line with the stock numbers. It's fairly accurate. There's some, obviously it's taken air mass into account. There's a few thing that it's taken into account. And 721 my car would probably be about right, honestly. Anthony's saying he just got an 0457 regular cab, short wheelbase, putting long tubes, high flow cats, X-pipe, plus 2.5-inch duals all the way back. What else would you recommend, and does this trans hold up? That's the old 5/6 speed, I believe, in that truck. Don't have a ton of experience with the older Mopars, but you're going to need to get it tuned, no doubt about it. So make sure that you've got a reputable tuner ready to go. Just hit Jermaine's deal again with the Scat Pack versus the RT and the driving experience. Yeah, it's a big difference. Jay saying, thank you for the wisdom. Thank you, brother. Joe's saying, I can bring you a 5.7. You can do what you want to do to it. Man, I wish I had the time. Right now, it's really more of a question of how much time do I have on my hands versus what do I want to do with it. And I'm going to focus. I'm going to brush up on my skills as far as detailing and things like that. I haven't done that really in a while, and I need to do that. So that's going to be the next thing. So the next projects really will be more on the channel. It's going to really be more. I've got one coming up that I want to do on EVs. I'll do a standalone video going over a little bit more data with the throttle body testing. Yeah, little stuff like that, but I'm gonna give everybody a spa day. Foxy's getting a spa day, Chandelier's getting a spa day, and Sierra's gonna get a spa day, as well as the Jeep. The Jeep will get a spa day. Camaro will probably get a spa day. Spa days for everybody. So, but yeah, man, I'll tell you something, dude. I would be in love with the idea of doing converter and a chunky cam, long tubes, the whole bit to a 5.7. Just get out there and crack some fools, because I love the 5.7 stuff. So, and I don't know why people try to kick 5.7s around like they're, some little stepbrother. I just really like the 5.7 cars. So they're fun to drive, and they make a hell of a good sound. So is that. Hey, Randy's checking in from Middle Tennessee. Sorry, late to the party. Cleaning some down trees. Oh, bummer. Had some serious storms come through here earlier. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. I know the feeling. I don't know if y'all know the story. This is how I can relate to my brother Randy over here. So we had a storm come through, as is common down here along the coast where Randy and I both live, and or near the coast, I should say. Anyway, we had a tree fall in. And landed basically on my office, which was a tree. And so, being the industrious fella that I am, I busted out the chainsaw and went to work on this tree. And in the process of doing that, I was wearing safety glasses, and I'd taken them off, and I was looking at the tree, and there was some other stuff, and I was like, well, let me just go ahead and hit this thing a couple of times real quick and get the thing to roll off and fall down. In the process of that, a stick that was about as long as this straw, but very, very, very small in diameter. It was probably like the diameter of this right here. This like ear that looks like it's massive. Anyway, about as long as one of the cords on one of these earbuds. You know what I'm talking about. Went into my eyeball. This is so fucking gross. So from your point of view, it goes into my eyeball and like wraps around this way. Now, I want you guys to understand how creepy that is. No pain whatsoever, by the way. It's just really creepy feeling. But this thing, and as it rolled back, and it just kind of went like that. It went like that, right into my right eyeball. And what y'all don't know about me is I damn near lost my left eye when I was younger. So, this reasons, okay? Nothing sexy about that story whatsoever. It has to do with me being on a roof. Anyway, this thing sticks into my eyeball. Now the problem is, when I was moving my eye, I could feel it, and I'm going, shit, it's in there, like far. Now it's not in the eyeball. It had gone around. It was real small, very small diameter, but long. So this thing like goes into my eyeball and is kind of around my eyeball. So I had to pull it out, and it was the weirdest feeling because I'm like, shit, and it just goes like that. It pops out of my freaking eye. And I'm like, everything cool? No scratches, no nothing. Everything was totally cool. I just had a freaking stick go visit the back of my eyeball, and that was it. So anyway, we got onto that story by means of him having to deal with some downed trees. I know the feeling. Last time I did it, I ended up with a stick in my eyeball and don't want to do that again. So yeah, now I'll wear my welding mask or I'll do something. But yeah, we ain't going out like that again because that scared the hell. What's weird is, it didn't scare me when it happened. It freaked me out afterwards. Like I was already over the fact that I had this thing sticking out of my eyeball. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, pulled the thing back around. Everything felt fine. And like, that was weird. So anyway, wear eye protection. And then what sucks, okay, so I was wearing my safety glasses the entire time. And I was like, God, let me pull these things off. It's driving me nuts. Anyway. Just takes 1 month, right? Himmy had saying missed his Nissan Z question. Oh shit! Above Superior Fit Cat's first super chat. Inquiring minds want to know. Oh, so damn. Okay, so I gotta be honest with you. I like it. I like what they did. Let me rephrase this. I like what they did. I like that it's going to be significantly less expensive than the Supra. But let me tell you something. I like that it's so close to the concept car too. That's the other cool thing. I don't understand why it looks like the thing is about to tackle the Baja 1000 though. The ride height of that thing, the stance of it is so wrong. Like it is so bad that it's almost like why was it so bad? Anyway, I don't like the stance of it. If you look at the Supra and then you look at the 400Z, the Supra looks like a proper sports car, like a finished sports car. I literally want to take a 400Z. I think this would be the shit. If you took that 400Z with that suspension that it's got, to me, it almost looks like you could put some Terra grapplers on that thing and go freaking pre-run that car. It'd probably be pretty good at it too. But I mean, I'm just saying it needs an altitude adjustment. It needs different wheels. But the one thing I don't like about it, and I've seen all the press releases and it's like, this is the 240 from the front. I'm like, yeah, the sexiest Nissan, 240, 260, good looking car. And then they say, well, it's the 90s era from the back. And it's like, dude, no, this is like the worst mashup ever. Like you just don't do, this is like putting Thousand Island dressing on a baked potato. Like, there's just certain things that you intrinsically know are gonna be just not that good. And that's where I'm at with the Z right now. I cannot hop in the sack with that thing. When I look at the Supra, y'all know that I've got a stupid crush on that car. I know that there's some things proportionately that really aren't there, but it's just built like a little thick chick, man. It's got an ass to it, you know, like it's not trying to be in shape, but it kind of is in shape. Like secretly does squats kind of ass. That's what it is. Like that's what the Supra does. The 400Z to me, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like out of shape, in shape looking. Like it looked like somebody had thrown out an idea and people just said, "Oh yeah, that sounds good," just because they wanted to make it to lunch or something like that. That's what it feels like. So again, I don't hate it. I like that you can get a proper manual with it. I get that it's built on the outgoing 370Z platform, which is to say the still going 370Z platform. Anyway, you know where I'm going with that. Good platform, good car. It's going to have a 9-speed automatic. Could be cool. Don't knock it yet. And 400 horsepower, which can't be all bad. But I want to see one with the right suspension, with a different set of wheels and tires. And of course, I want to see one go down the drag strip. So, or get some draggy data on one. But until then, I love it for what it is. I love it because it's less expensive. I think it opens up a different driving experience to folks that may have been leaning towards the Mustang. That have no desire to go into a Mopar, but where the Mustang only had its own audience, and the 370, because of the lack of power, just would not garner an audience really. And with that, I have to say this. I love the way a 370 looks. I would have really preferred that the 370 got the 400 treatment. Because I really thought that it deserved it. The 400Z, I get what they're going with it. It's kind of a mashup of design traits and qualities. That's fine. I think there's a lot of potential there. I will say that. And I will say also that although I am not a player, I am very interested to see where that car can go. Rich saying, thank you very much, by the way, brother. Saying he's got the Ripatune Pulley 3.1 on ethanol with good tune, and it does pretty good, although I would never run it without a tune. That is the point that I'm talking about. It's not, you can't run with that air charge. The thing is there's nothing magic about how this stuff works. That's why when you tune them, you can tune them to do whatever you want them to do in terms of pulleys and fuel and everything else up to a certain point. But you got to remember that there's a breakover point, and the breakover point is stock, because I've shown that you can exceed the stock air charge tables with a stock car. So yeah, it takes some pretty specialized conditions to do it, but you can do it nonetheless. And I mean, when I say it's on the limit, brother, it is on the limit as far as what you can get away with really anything other than, you know, a corn build, really, E85. But thank you very much, Rip. Appreciate that. 1320J is in with the arm flex. I like it. And again, thank you, Rip. Appreciate it. 1320 is asking, what is that number of horsepower loss per 1,000 feet of elevation? It is 3%. And that's, again, it's an aviation thing. And when you had a naturally aspirated engine, well, let's talk about that for a minute. So naturally aspirated engine, or an engine that relies on a single stage supercharger driven by the engine. So you can think of that as a Roots supercharger, positive displacement. You can think of that as a centrifugal supercharger, which is what most warbirds, if you're into World War II aircraft, which is where all this hot rodding stuff was invented, by the way. As y'all know, I was a docent at Hiller Aviation Museum, so as an engine specialist, that's what I focused on. So when you're talking about like a single stage centrifugal supercharger, it is only going to be able to feed the engine so much air at a certain altitude. And the way that would work on a single stage is you would literally have to throttle the engine. The higher you got, the more throttle you could give it without going into overboost. With a turbocharger, it's different, because a turbocharger, you just have a wastegate spring and you just feed the thing full throttle whenever you want, because you don't have to worry about throttling a turbo. It'll just feed the thing power up until the compressor literally cannot draw in any more air. At that point, your manifold pressure will start to drop with more altitude, meaning your performance window is now closing shut. This is where 2-stage and 3-stage superchargers started to become more popular. You had a primary stage, which would handle everything you needed from takeoff to, say, 15,000 feet. 15,000 feet, kick it over to your second stage supercharger. That might get you up to 25,000 feet. Anything above that, if you had a third stage, you would kick over to your third stage. And all the stages are, is think of it like you're shifting gears. First gear, second gear, third gear. Or in this case, you have a primary blower and a secondary blower, and you've got your primary blower turning, and then you kick on the boost from, or you add in boost from another compressor. Anyway, first gear, second gear, third gear is the easiest way I could explain it. And you start to funnel more air. Again, this is higher parasitic loss, but you're making up for that obviously with the higher boost, or the maintaining of the boost that you got. And that allows you to maintain horsepower numbers up to whatever altitude that your compound compressor now can no longer feed the engine, and then your performance window begins to shut. Again, this is where turbos are the ultimate cheat code, because the higher the altitude, the thinner the air. But if you've got a big enough compressor, you can still make manifold pressure and go really fast with low wind resistance. So anyway, naturally aspirated, 3% per 1,000 feet. Sorry, you know me, I can definitely go crazy. Jay's saying he's at 6,100 feet with a 6.4. That means you're losing about 18%. So you're losing about 40 horsepower, give or take. Yeah, well, 5 times 2. Yeah, actually, no, you're losing more than that. Damn, you're losing about 70 or 80 horsepower at 6,100 feet. Redrick's asking best and worst long tube for a 5.7. Best, Cooks, hands down, no questions asked. Worst, I don't know that there is a worst. Fitment with American racing can be a little bit iffy depending on platforms, things like that. But best by far is Cooks for build quality. Oh, Hibby's saying, yep, aviators typically use the 3% per 1,000 foot. Yes, sir. Oh, Chuck's saying a lot of trolls out there that bash the 5.7 Challenger. I've had a blast in mine and have won against some cars I thought that he thought was going to beat him. Look, they're a blast to drive, man. Like my truck, my daily is a 5.7 quad cab, and love the truck. It's an awesome truck. So quick enough, lights up the tires. I mean, speaking of which, I got to put new tires on that thing. Does everything I would love for it to do. So yeah, the car weighs 1,000 pounds less, and they scoot. So what's not to love? Oh, Himmy had saying, love the 5.7 cars. Had one in my first Challenger and loved it. Absolutely. Joe's saying it's funny because with the 390 diff swap and custom tune, a guy with a 392 had a hard time getting away from you. So yeah, he likes his 5.7. That's what I've been saying, man. You can absolutely ding folks with a 5.7. They just don't get it. Jay saying, so maybe 400 wheel horsepower at 6,100 if you figure 440 wheel stock, 45 crank. I've never seen one drop 440. I've seen on a dyno jet, I've seen a lot of 430s. So I would say for like on that dyno, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, 400 to start with. Let's see. Let me do this the smart way. So, if you're used to seeing 430, what do we say? You're at 6, so yeah, I mean, you could see numbers that are pretty low, like 350, 360, honestly, because you're looking at 430 to the rear wheels and you're at 6,000 feet, 430 times 0.18, that's 77 horsepower. So 77.4 minus 430 puts you at roughly 352 horsepower. So would not be uncommon though. I mean, you figure, and that's on a dyno jet. Now, that'd be a kind of a normal 430 to the rear wheels down here, uncorrected, by the way. Now you correct it, obviously you're going to show a higher number, but uncorrected numbers, that's going to put you about right. And really that's about the right amount of sense, because you would see KPA in like the 83%, like 83 KPA for cars. I know Alex was doing remote tunes up in Denver, and you would see like 83 KPA instead of 100 KPA down here for barometric pressure. So just something to think about, but that wouldn't be uncommon to see that kind of number. Randy's saying, holy crap, after spending a lot of last year in Lake Charles and Gulf Shores doing hurricane cleanup, I now have a full helmet with shield and chaps. I wouldn't blame you for that. Riff's saying he's not really big into the front end, but he likes the rest of it. Yeah. Rudder's saying closer to 360-ish bone stock, and that's really what we came up with. So good number on that. Chuck saying, I am American Mopar to the soul, but I do tip my hat to what BMW M5 CS. Yeah, I tell you, man, they do some good work. Saying two-wheel and the all-wheel drive models. Yeah, it's spooky. The all-wheel drive stuff, you can have some unassuming cars get out there and really put a hurting on you. Albert saying, the man, the myth, the legend, glad to have you back. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Appreciate that a ton. Riff saying, thumbs up all. 1320 saying, 61, 100 foot. Riff saying, the P-51 took advantage of the supercharger a lot during World War II. That's true. P-51, the engine in that airplane had a two-stage, if I remember correctly. The Corsair, all of the Wasp engines, so the P-47, Corsair, Hellcat, which is an actual warbird, by the way. It's what the car was named after. All of those had 2- and 3-stage supercharging. Some with water meth injection, some without. The D model had water meth injection. God, there's a lot of this stuff I've forgotten about, to be honest with you. All of the inverted V12s from Germany were running some type of a water meth alcohol injection to make up for low octane ratings, because they couldn't run the manifold pressure. The big deal with the 51 is that they would run real high manifold pressures with the 51. They would run, instead of 60 inches or 40 inches of mercury, they'd run 60. I mean, they would just run ridiculous manifold pressures with those things. So, that's one of the big advantages that they had, was just access to really good fuel. So, but that is correct. And that's what they would do. They were, high altitude specific. And it was, again, it was a situation where and the reason why they did not run turbos in those airplanes, there just wasn't enough room. That technology for turbos and how they worked and everything. They were just bigger, much bigger than what they are now, and they physically didn't fit. If you've ever seen a centrifugal supercharger for one of those V12s, they're huge. They're about this big around. They're absolutely massive. But I mean, they had to be, because they were trying to take as big of a gulp of air as they could at altitude. But anyway, let's see. 1320 saying, thanks for the harsh truth, man. It's not harsh. It's just it is what it is, brother. Anthony saying, thank you for your insight. Maybe I'll catch you at the track. He's out of here. Good seeing you, brother. 1320 saying, I need a cat. Have a good night, bro. Y'all too. And Chuck saying, keep the throttle to the floor, Anthony. See you next show. Absolutely. Keep it pinned. Firewall it. With that, guys, I'm going to check out. We are 2 hours and 20 minutes into it. It's been a while since I've done a live show. Great to have y'all with me. Absolutely love each and one of y'all. Could not do this without you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So keep your shine side up. You're going to send it, don't bend it. And that is a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Miss you, Ray. And we'll see you next time. Adios.